Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. This is BRN AM for Friday, June 14th, 2024. And our top story today, service dogs may reduce PTSD symptoms for military members and veterans. And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Dr. Marguerite O'Hare of the University of Arizona College of Veterinary Medicine. Dr. O'Hare, it is so great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I love this study for a lot of reasons. One, and I want to talk about PTSD in a minute, but I'll just set it up by saying I love that the fact that we can help veterans who obviously who go through difficult times. And then two, the animal component, since I'm a cat owner with my wife, we have 2 cats. I love the fact that we can leverage our man's best friend to help some of these individuals. But I want to get your take on this study. Let's talk about PTSD and how prevalent it is among our veterans, our U.S. veterans.
Absolutely. Well, we know that our veterans are struggling. They're facing high rates of PTSD, anxiety, depression, and even suicide. If we look at the numbers, about 1 in 4 veterans with PTSD is being diagnosed with, about 1 in 4 veterans is being diagnosed with PTSD. And some say that's probably an underestimate, given that not everyone goes out and gets an official diagnosis.
And, these are obviously interesting times. We've had wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, more people are deployed, but you don't necessarily have to be in a firefight to have PTSD. You can get it in a lot of ways, right? I mean, the causation is not just, hey, I'm in a conflict.
Absolutely. It's unique to each individual, and it's a mental health diagnosis that follows a trauma. That trauma can be whatever it means to an individual and the symptoms that occur after that, but it's not prescriptive. It doesn't have to be one specific terrible thing. It's different for each individual.
And how does PTSD, forgive me, and I want to get to the service animals in a few seconds, but the PTSD, how does it present itself? Does it present itself, because if I'm a caregiver, if I'm a loved one, can I see when someone who's a veteran is going through or having the reactions to some type of event?
Yes, absolutely. I think our caregivers are often one of the first to notice a change in their partner or their family member. It's important to remember that each person's experience is unique, but typically you'll notice that they're having flashbacks and nightmares, they're isolating, and they're hypervigilant to what's going on around them.
Yeah, and it puts so much strain. These types of things not only hurt the veteran, but you mentioned we were talking about before, the family, the spouse, the loved ones, the children. It definitely can create a lot of unease in the household. All right, let's talk about, if you don't mind, the service animals. I'm going to call them, they're almost like service members. How important is having a service animal to a veteran who, based on the study, to deal with this affliction?
Yes, so service dogs are different to a companion animal or a pet dog because they're trained to do specific tasks that help with a disability. In this case, the disability is PTSD. So an example of one of the most common trained tasks for an individual with PTSD is to help calm or comfort from anxiety. So if the veteran perceives that they're about to have a panic attack or they're really struggling, they can ask the dog to do things to help, such as calming deep pressure, nudging them, or being right next to them to help bring them back to the present and center them on what's currently going around in reality rather than the trauma that's going on in their mind.
And is the dog the preferred partner? I'm going to call them partner in this regard, because do they have a sixth sense, so to speak, to know when their owner, their service member is going through something? I mean, can they sense that?
Absolutely. I think there are reasons why people partner with dogs specifically. We have many different species of animals that we interact with in our lives, yet dogs have a certain level of connection with humans and trainability and comfort on their own part with being in public and going different places. So I think that the natural characteristics of a dog help lend themselves to develop that bond and that rapport, as well as the training that is required to do these specific tasks.
Well, Dr. O'Hara, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about our service members, PTSD, and service animals. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the First Lifestyle and Wellness Network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device. Well, Dr. O'Hara, thank you so much for staying with us. Really appreciate you hanging around for segment number 2 this morning.
My pleasure.
Are there certain types of dogs that really work well, or could a Chihuahua work versus a German Shepherd, as an example?
That is one of the questions people are interested in, which dogs are going to be the best service dogs. What we know so far is that most organizations partner with Labrador retrievers, golden retrievers, or mixes between the two. In this study, we worked with Canines for Warriors, which is a provider that works with shelter and rescue dogs. So we actually had a large number of breeds and mixed breeds in the study, which allowed us to look at that to ask, is there a breed that is best? What we found is that because there were so many mixes and so many varieties that nothing emerged clearly from that data, it appeared that all of the animals were functioning at a high capacity as a service animal. They are also screened for certain characteristics and trained really thoroughly. So it makes sense that we didn't see huge differences between the group that we were working with. In terms of whether any breed can be a service animal, most of the providers for PTSD do have a size requirement. So the dog needs to be a certain size that is larger than a Chihuahua for things like a brace command, which is where the dog helps the person get up from a seated position. Would be a little hard with a tiny Chihuahua.
Yeah, I guess Paris Hilton doesn't have to worry about it. Isn't she the one who had like the little Chihuahua that she carried?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I didn't watch her so-called life. Anyway, how let's talk about personalization, because we're all unique individuals. We all have our own experiences. How important is it during the training process and aligning a dog with a former service member, a veteran, to personalize and the way a person, their gait, the way they breathe, the way they smell, that all seems to me it's a personal connection with the animal.
Absolutely. So much of it is about that connection, that relationship, and that bond. And the providers of service dogs will look at that. They do a thorough application process about the human as well as a thorough screening of the animal. So they take into account all of the different factors. It's quite an art and a science to make this match come together. They might look at the activity levels of the human and the dog. If someone is really active, wants to hike mountains, they might want a certain dog compared to someone else who has, a relatively sedentary lifestyle, and it's going to need a dog who's comfortable with that and doesn't need to go hike mountains. So they really try and match those things. And then after the match, the partnership continues to be individualized. For example, you can learn what tasks the human needs and provide additional training for that dog to do more of these tasks and less of the others. Or there might be a unique situation where a person needs a task that most of the dogs don't do. So they'll find a dog who's well suited to being trained for those tasks. And that can ebb and flow over time. These partnerships can last up to a decade or more. And so over time, a human's needs change. The dog can be trained and tailored to meet those needs over time.
Yeah, so it's almost like a matchmaking. I'm thinking about Millionaire Matchmaker. I mean, it's almost like
Yes.
matching the animal. They have their own personality with the human being. It's being basically, it's almost like dating.
Yes, absolutely. And interesting you mentioned that, because we did a study to look at how much time the human and the dog spend together. And we tracked it via Bluetooth. There was a ping between the person's phone and the dog's collar. And we find that veterans and service dogs are spending about 20 hours a day together. And when you think about it, and I won't make anyone answer, but who else in your life are you wanting to spend 20 hours together side by side with? people aren't really coming up with any names quickly on that. And so, if nothing else, I think it's a relationship that really deserves some attention and some study, given that people are selectively choosing to have them at this frequency.
Yeah, you make some really, I mean, it is, look, animals are just so pure in their understanding of human emotions and their relationship with their partner. And I think that's absolutely amazing. Last question, and I promise we'll let you go get back to doing your studies and everything else. Could this research lead, we've got tens of millions of veterans. I think the number is close to around 17 or 19 million veterans, I think active veterans, meaning they're alive. Could this, and there are a plethora of dogs in shelters. I mean, could this be, I could see it where someone was transitioning out of the service. Not only did they get support transitioning back into civilian life, but maybe they get the opportunity to partner with a canine or another animal. I mean, could you see that? Is this study the basis for something like that?
Yes, absolutely. And we have seen some unique programs where even if the veteran isn't going to have a service dog themselves, they can volunteer to help train that dog for someone else. And these programs touch many veteran lives because many veterans can be involved in the training for one dog, and then that dog is paired with a veteran who they remain with for the rest of their working days. So I think there's many opportunities. There is no shortage of availability of human animal bond and dogs in our lives and dogs in our society. It's not going to be for everyone. I think that's something to keep in mind. Not everyone wants to be a part of this or will benefit, but for those who may benefit, our job is to collect the data and the science to help support that so they can understand whether and how it might work for which people.
Yeah, it's really amazing, and there's so much that needs to be done for these 17. I think it's closer to 19 million, but I could be wrong. But regardless, this is something that needs to be done to help those people who have done a lot of good for us. And we can talk about that in a different story, but it's absolutely amazing. Dr. O'Hare, we're going to have to leave it there. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And that wraps up this episode of BRNAM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to? Drop us a line, and don't forget, for all the latest curated news in lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content, then visit our website. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN Weekly. Jane King will be here to help break down markets and the economy. She'll be joining us from the NASDAQ, and then we'll take a look back at some of our best segments for the week. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving. Don't forget, roll with the changes.